it's made with organic grapes. This is fine for you to drink, right?
Yeah. Wine is fine. It's organic, right?
All right. So, got Rocky here. Sorry.
Our mascot?
Okay. So, I guess we're gonna start.
What's happening?
Hi, I'm Erica. I'm Coda and Rocco's mom. And this is my friend Ashley. She's also my mentor in terms of feeding raw, so I thought it would be good to have her on the video with me. First, we would like to, and there's Rocky. First, we would like to say thank you to Sam and Dax for having us on their For Real Friday series. That's super fun. And I guess we'll just get right into it. So, the first thing that we're going to discuss is necessities of raw feeding and the reasons to do so. So what would you say is... Okay, we might need to redo that one. Do that one over. I don't do well when it's like one long thing where I have to talk about certain specific things. Okay. So we're going to jump right in. And we're going to get started with the basics and the necessities that you need to have to feed raw. So what would you say is the basic understanding that you have to have in order to start feeding raw?
Basic understanding. So just understanding, I guess, why you're feeding raw is the most important thing, and understanding that it's really for their health. It's a biologically appropriate way to feed your dog, and that's going to save you a lot of money in the long run. So I know a lot of people, when you first start looking, you're looking at the cost of raw food, and that seems like a lot, but in the long term, over vet bills and other health issues, you're definitely saving a lot of money. And I know my dog is literally like the case in point with that. We have the one dog who was at the vet constantly, always sick, and he was even home cooked. It wasn't even kibble. Then we have another puppy that has been on raw his whole life, who's only been to the vet 3 times for his, state-required vaccines. So there's definitely a difference in the benefit.
Okay, definitely see that. In my case, Rocky was having a lot of issues with skin rashes and allergies and all that stuff. I took him to a dermatologist. It was extremely expensive. Way more than I've ever spent on another dog.
Especially when you get into the specialist.
Yeah, oh my god. But at the time I felt like it was absolutely necessary. It was just something that I had to do. There was no way around it in the current condition that he was in. So we went through rounds of antibiotics. We went through the whole allergy test. We went through allergy medication. And finally this last time I decided to switch him back to raw, and so far his skin is perfect. No issues. He is still on his anti-itch medication, but other than that, he doesn't need to be on antibiotics, doesn't need to be on any other pills than that.
So just curious, what would you guesstimate you spent on that?
I'd say close to $5,000.
Just on that?
And that was in the span of maybe 2 months.
Right.
Just it got so bad because, a little backstory, Rocky was from basically when we got him as a puppy fed raw until we had all the puppies here, like his and Harley's puppies. And I didn't want them, I didn't know how the owners would feel with like them being around raw food, or like how it would even impact them if Harley was being fed raw. So I switched them all back to kibble, just so that like Harley was eating the same kibble that the puppies were going to eat when they started eating solid food. And that's when stuff started getting really bad.
So what was that time frame between when you put him on kibble and then when we had to start seeing specialists?
I'd say, and I mean, granted, I held out as long as possible before seeing a specialist. Like, I took him to my regular vet. He was on like a couple rounds of antibiotics before I got, like,
So from that point then, when did you have to start taking him to the vet after he started kibble?
probably, I'd say a month, a
Okay.
couple weeks to a month.
So that's pretty
And
fast.
yeah, and that's, I mean, I'm a very, like, go with the flow type of pet owner where if he has a little skin rash, okay, like, bathe him a little more often, like, normally things resolve themselves, and that's what I've seen with all of my other dogs, but Rocky's was completely different, completely something that I was not prepared to,
Yeah.
deal with.
Yeah, you can't outbathe an internal condition.
Yeah.
So
And that's what I didn't understand.
Note that when they're giving you topical shampoos for your dogs that have chronic skin issues, you can't outbathe internal health dilemmas.
Yes. And honestly, if I had just, I mean, obviously there were outside factors as to why I couldn't immediately switch them back to raw. But if I had just never taken them off of raw or just switched them back earlier, maybe I would have saved a ton of money. Even though the food would have been a little more expensive, but it was definitely would have been worth it.
Definitely cheaper than $5,000 in the course of 2 months.
Yes.
For sure.
Yeah, definitely. So just like that, it obviously saves money in the long run.
And I'm not different. I have, like I said, I had one dog with thousands of dollars in vet bills as well. The second one who started on raw, don't have that. So it's not even, sadly, a unique story.
I know. I feel like way more people go through this than we even think
Yes.
they do.
Yes, and specialists in the dog veterinary community are becoming more prevalent. We are in LA, so I mean we do have a specialist for everything. And normally in our backyard, it's not hard for us to find, but you are seeing it across the United States. Vets are now specializing in the same thing that we'll see human doctors specialize in.
Yeah, which I'm a little torn on whether that's good, bad, whether it is just what it is, but
I definitely have opinions, but that's probably for another
time. So anyways, let's get started with the necessities of what you need to even begin thinking of feeding raw. Because the first time, I wish I had had a video like this, because it was a shit show.
So your starting point, you absolutely have to have the right equipment. And that starts with, hands down, invest in a decent scale. With kibble, most people are used to just scooping and dumping in a bowl. You cannot get away with that with raw food. We do everything by ounces or pounds even if your dog is large or extra large. And a scale is the most accurate way to make sure that you are balancing. So that is hands down, you cannot start this without a scale. Even on a pre-made diet where you're not doing anything, you're just serving, you still need a scale to weigh portions. On top of that, I have separate utensils that I use for dog food preparation just because it makes me feel better. I like them having their own serving stuff. And then obviously we're going to want a separate sponge than what you're washing your dishes with. And on that note, I will add, that's probably true for anything that you're touching raw meat to. So if you're preparing chicken, steak, whatever in your house, that probably should be using a different sponge in general, but the dogs need their own brush. And a brush actually is what I would prefer. Sponges are literally a sponge for bacteria.
Yeah.
So sometimes you can do more harm than good. So a scrubber brush is better, and then a natural way to clean your countertops. I won't lie, we're a little bit riskier, but we are 2 adults and 2 dogs in my house, and you know, I already have a air dried dog treat business, so I'm not entirely afraid of bacteria or icky stuff. So I won't lie, I don't clean as well as I should. But if you have kids or you have people who are more compromised, or maybe you just feel more comfortable, we use a spray peroxide. So just regular peroxide from the store, and we have a spray bottle version of it. And that's really great for naturally and chemically free cleaning those countertops and getting rid of bacteria.
That's a great idea. I honestly, like, in a rush, I just went to Target and picked up they have so many now, antibacterial sprays. I just picked one of those up, but the peroxide one is a good idea.
Yeah, and that's a whole nother conversation there too that we can touch on later, talking about why it's more ideal to use a natural product versus a conventional chemical-based product.
Yeah. You know what I think is funny is people have been handling raw meat for ever
since we
And
evolved.
It's, I mean, it just seems like irrelevant to say that harm to us is a reason not to feed your dog raw. Because, okay, so should we not be eating chicken or steak or beef or pork or anything?
And that's one of the things that you'll hear in the veterinary community from the vets who aren't open to the concept of raw. They're going to talk about risk of bacteria to you. They're going to talk about bacteria to your dog. If you can buy chicken at the grocery store, which has probably the highest rate of bacteria, listeria, salmonella, E. coli, out of any product, and you can eat it, you are perfectly capable of handling a raw diet for your dog.
Yeah.
We know what to do. We know that we wash our hands after.
Hopefully. Hopefully we know. Now, especially with COVID.
Right.
I hope
wash
we know.
your hands 10 times a day, wear your gloves.
Yeah.
So, and again, not that this is good advice, but because we're using spoons when we're doing our meal prep, we don't always have to wash our hands. We aren't incredibly germaphobe, but it is an option for anyone who is weary or new to this and concerned about bacteria, raw meat handling, anything like that. Just like you prep your dinner for your family, you wash your hands. And that's it. There's no risk after that.
And not to scare anyone, but even though, like, we can be a little more risky because, I mean, I've been doing it for so long, I know, like, if I touch something, okay, I'm going to wash my hands. But, I mean, I have gotten sick from it.
From raw?
Yeah. But that, I mean, only because I was being dumb. Like, not at all because I was in a rush. And I missed something.
Yeah, and my only E. coli experience was a sick reptile that I was taking care of. So I can't even blame raw feeding for my experience. And I will say, on that note, E. coli poisoning and bacteria is not something to mess with. So yes, wash your hands. I was sick for months. Like violently ill for months, and
but again, that's not from raw
and
feeding.
it wasn't raw. It was a reptile, and it's
not the same thing.
It wasn't even a turtle, but I have been sick from.
I don't know if I got E. coli. I think I got a slight case of salmonella,
which is more likely.
Yeah, it wasn't. I mean, I wasn't aggressively sick. Like, didn't have to miss work or anything. But it was a little upset stomach, and that was it.
Yeah, but again, washing your hands, using a proper clean surface. So that's very avoidable, not problematic for you as long as you're clean.
Now, before starting raw, I feel like it's so important to get down a system.
Yes.
Wouldn't you say? Or like some sort of organizational method, or just, I mean, I don't know how else to put it, but a system.
Yeah. This is a little bit more involved than dump and go.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to be a huge production, or you can. Some people kind of meal prep. So just like you see with people, humans, their meal prep containers, you can do that with your dogs. Do a big batch all at once. Maybe get a month or a few weeks ahead, and dump and go. That's fine. If you're not doing that, you do need to have, at least a way to keep all of your dog stuff together.
Mm-hmm.
So it is easy, so it is convenient. Keep your cleaning supplies right there. Keep your supplements, those utensils. We have a separate utensil tray.
Yeah.
So that's just where our, it's in our drawer with our regular stuff, but they have a separate tray. So we just utilize what works for our house and our setup.
Right.
Because obviously it would be great if we could have a dedicated dog kitchen, but...
Oh my God, the dream, right?
Right. The dog mom dream is that kitchen just for the dogs, with their freezer, their fridge, but...
I'm partway there. I got my dogs have their own fridge. They do, but it's small. It's a mini fridge. I'm not that crazy. Or, well, I don't have that much space. I guess I'll put it that way.
Yeah, it's not a lack of crazy. It's a lack of space.
Lack of space, definitely a lack of space. But... yeah, no, that's so true. Like, I do the part way meal prep, part just have my system down. I'll, like, prep their breakfast is basically. So when I come home from work, they don't eat immediately because they eat their breakfast a little late. But when I'm preparing their dinner, they will eat it, and then I'll wash all of the stuff, and then I'll prepare their breakfast, and then it goes directly into their fridge. And then it just gets served to them in the morning. Just like that, over and over again.
And that is the easiest way to do it, especially if you are busy. Most people, generally speaking, have less time in the mornings, but more time in the evening.
Yeah.
So that is the best way to do it. So you can prepare dinner, take a little more time, have a little more of a ritual with it, and then at the same time, prep and prepare breakfast. So breakfast is easy, and you just drop it and move on with your life.
Now, the one thing that I really struggled with in the beginning was getting down the defrosting time. Figuring out the defrosting time, because that is so hard, especially like when you're busy. So you'll go to the store and you'll be like, okay, cool, I got a week's worth of food. But you don't realize that like
It's
3 days later, you got to go back to the store so that you can defrost the next week of food. And yeah, it's, how do you deal with that situation? Especially
always have a backup plan.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
If you are feeding raw, I guarantee you, probably once a month, you're gonna forget to pull out their food.
Yeah.
It's
bad.
it's true.
Mom heart hurts.
It's probably once a month for us, or you run out and you thought you had another pack, you thought you had more.
God.
So you have to have a backup plan, and
So
it's okay.
What is your backup plan? Let's get real here.
So I have the luxury of being in a never-ending treat factory.
That is true. It's true.
So we'll throw together a protein, chicken. We always have something in the freezer. I will say that. There's always something that we can do pretty quickly. So we'll probably have like a chicken thigh or ground beef, and it's normally like sectioned off. So we can pull that out, and we can throw it on the stove for a quick second if it's frozen, just to bring it down or bring it up in temperature. And then we'll supplement with our air-dried organs.
That's smart.
So we get around it because we have that.
Yeah.
And then, you know, we have the air-dried tripe. So if we ran out of food, that might be a tripe night for them.
I mean, that's not a bad night. That's not a bad night.
I can tell you, they're not complaining. The dogs love the crunchy treats.
No.
Or that's the other thing. We'll feed a bone. So we'll give them a larger treat. So my dogs are smaller. So they can get like a duck neck, a chicken back, something like that. And that'll, are we talking about your food? So that'll supplement them for that evening. So there's a few ways that we do it. So it could be a bone night. It could be air dried, or we've thrown something on the stove for a second. And we really will. We'll throw stuff together, stuff that they really don't even normally eat. But we're like, oh, they need dinner and they need breakfast tomorrow. So
yeah. Well, that sounds a lot more organized than my backup plan.
eggs help too.
Oh my god. So my backup plan. This is gonna make me sound like a horrible dog mom. Trader Joe's salmon in a jar, or tuna in a jar, and then throw some eggs on it with
That's
maybe
not
some
bad.
treats.
Yeah, they get their omegas. They get,
Yeah.
It's not often enough for it to create any sort of imbalance. It's not often enough to be an issue unless you are pretty behind and you're doing it.
Yeah, no, that's never happened for me. I won't say it could never happen. I don't know what's going to happen in the future, but it's always been like once a month, even less than that, every 3 months.
Yeah.
It's like, oh shit.
It seems like everyone I know in our raw community, we all see the post, we all do the post, where we're like, ah, crap. Forgot to pull dinner out of the freezer. And I will, for some reason, that's when it'll take the longest to defrost.
Oh, right. Yeah, it's like watching paint dry.
Yeah. At least that's not too bad, but in our treat business, we've got 20-pound chubs of stuff, and that takes a couple days to actually bring it down to be able to work with it.
Yeah. Man. So anyways, moving on. What did we say was our next? Oh, so let's get into portions, and I guess we can touch on transitioning again. I don't
think we talked. So let's do
transitioning.
transitioning and then into portion. So transitioning, this is one of the probably most common questions we get when you're going from a kibble-based diet to raw feeding. How do you transition? With kibble, if you've purchased a new brand of kibble, they'll show you a little pie chart, and here's a quarter of the new kibble, and then a few days at half and half, and then 3/4, and then you switch it over. In raw food, that is a disaster. So I recommend...
You don't even want to.
Cold turkey is the best way to do it. So fast them for 24 hours, so feed them their kibble dinner. So no breakfast, their next dinner should be 100% raw. And that is usually going to be, for most dogs, the path of least resistance. And I know it goes against everything we've been told and we've heard, things that we are conditioned to believe about their stomachs, but that is their best chance at digesting raw meat.
Yeah. So what if you're like a worrying mom and you don't want to let your child go without one meal?
So if you're really nervous about it, I think 12 hours is a little bit too soon, so I don't recommend the breakfast. Agree. But what you can do is supplement with some goat's milk or bone broth in the morning. So do a modified fast. If you have to, if you really, really have to, maybe consider a very lightly cooked egg. So, and I guarantee your dogs are fine. I know it seems cruel, and we're going to actually talk about this another time, is fasting. But they are totally fine. They'll survive. But a lightly cooked egg, raw goat's milk or goat's milk, and bone broth, that's a modified fast just to get them over that hunger barrier and waiting till their next meal.
Yeah. And let's all remember that, has there ever been a time when your dog has acted not hungry?
Right.
I mean, let's be real.
They're always starving.
Anytime they hear a bag open, whether it's a chip bag, I don't even know, grocery bag, their treat bag,
they are perpetually starved.
Doing all of their tricks.
They are perpetually starved, obviously, and many of us neglect our dogs, apparently.
Yeah. In their eyes, their eyes.
Yes. But they will survive. And I know some of you with breeds like the Labs, the Beagles, I know we're going to hear it. Our hounds, we're going to hear it from them. But they're going to get through it, and you will too. It's only 24 hours.
Yeah. So, touching on the transition, if I could just say a little story. So I actually have started raw twice. So when Rocky and Harley were puppies, when they were around like 4 months old, Coda, I can't even remember how old Coda was at that time. Less than 5.5 years old. That's how old he was. So I got duped by what I read on the internet about slowly introducing raw food to them, and it was a literal shit show. And it was bad. All bad. I thought there's no way I could do this. Like, I was so much stress.
But this is what scares a lot of people, though.
Yeah.
Because then they blame the raw.
Exactly.
The raw is making them sick. So this transition is what scares a lot of people, and they instantly cut back to kibble.
Yeah. But what's funny is it's actually the kibble that's making them sick. That's what people don't realize.
Right.
It's the kibble, and you can explain that because you're the nutritionist.
So we'll touch on why that is and why we're doing that. So our dogs have a much higher pH balance in their stomach than humans because they are capable of digesting bacteria, raw meat, pathogens. And it's perfectly fine for them. There's very few instances where I wouldn't recommend raw, and even at that, it's pretty subjective and it would be a case-by-case situation. But when you're feeding kibble, the stomach acid isn't at a natural level for them because the starches require something different. It does not have to be as high because it's a slower burning fuel for the dogs, so it digests slower, so the stomach acid is lower. That is why when you combine the two, raw and kibble, you have a really tough time getting their stomach acid correct, and that's where you'll see the vomiting, the diarrhea, because their stomach is just all over, so the kibble's not getting digested properly, and neither is the raw, and this is now dangerous.
Right.
This is what you'll see, and then when they go to the vet, because the dog's been sick for a few days, they'll tell them, get away from the raw. Raw is so bad, and it's like they're trying to prove that point when really it was just the transition that wasn't good. So that's the issue.
Back when I was doing a lot of research on like raw, this is before, this was like, has to be over a year ago. before I even started the first time. I read somewhere, I'm not sure about the specifics of the numbers, but I read somewhere that it actually takes way longer for the dog's body to digest the kibble.
Mm-hmm.
So if you add on, and like, I guess the raw takes shorter. So if you add it,
it confuses the
that,
digestive tract.
Okay.
So your dog's digestive tract is significantly shorter than ours.
Right.
So that is because they are designed to handle, again, and we were going to say it a lot, pathogens and bacteria. A shorter digestive tract means they're getting it out of their system faster too. So that's why. That's why you see herbivores, they have a longer digestive tract and they have different jaw and teeth structures because they have to grind and pound.
I should not have thrown that ball.
They have to grind and mash that vegetation. So dogs are automatically off to a rough start, and they also don't even produce the enzyme in their saliva to break down a starch or a carb. So there's a lot that goes on in the digestive tract, and that is, advanced knowledge. But their shorter digestive tract is designed to get raw meat in and out quickly. Starches take longer, and again, they just don't have the biology that supports that.
Right.
And that's really what it comes down to. And then again, when you're mixing it, it's very confusing to the stomach acid doesn't know what to do. It doesn't know if we need a high acid wash or if we need a slow burn. It doesn't know what to do.
Damn.
And finding that middle point, that's where you're sick because you're not breaking down enough bacteria and you're also not digesting carbs.
Right. Yeah, that sounds horrible. That sounds like it'd be a bad time for anyone.
Don't recommend it.
Yeah, no. So let's get into portions. I got actually a question about this, but we'll go over the questions after. So I feel like portions are relatively cut and dry, but also pretty based on the case.
Yeah.
Right?
So your dog's unique, and that's the end of the story.
Yeah.
So we all have a consensus on a starting point. If you're on a diet, it should be about 1.5 to 2% of their weight in ounces. If we're maintaining weight, it's somewhere between 2 to 3%. If they need to put on weight, it's 3 to 3.5%. If it's a puppy, it's up to 6%.
Yeah. And so I guess, I don't know, I feel like people define puppies in different, ages.
Yeah,
up
so
to a
you would
different
look at
age.
probably more like a max of 6%, and then you're going to taper down as they're getting older.
Right.
Something to note, there's a couple caveats to this. So really what you need to do is look at your dog. Is your dog maintaining its weight? Then that's probably, if it's maintaining the weight and that's a healthy weight for them, that's a right portion. If they need to lose weight, cut back a little bit. If they are getting a little too skinny, up their food or up their healthy fats. So there's ways to do this. And then with the puppies, you're going to start high. As they're reaching full maturity, you're going to wean them down. So this is no different than what your kibble bags tell you. So you'll see that. As their metabolism and growth is slowing, so should their calorie intake.
Right.
What you'll see with most dogs, as they get spayed or neutered, you're going to see a massive drop in their metabolism. So that's a really good point to note that that's a time to cut back. Yeah. You'll see that. A lot of dogs put on weight after they get spayed or neutered. So that's a starting point. And then also knowing small dogs typically do have a faster metabolism and usually will eat a little bit more.
Right.
So there's a lot of individuality there, but 2.5% is normally a starting point, and then you have to adjust based on your individual dog, how they're looking, how they're feeling. Are they truly starving? Because I can tell you can tell when the dog is sincerely hungry versus, did you grab some crisps? Can I have that?
Oh, yeah. So a little mom fail story, I guess. I feel like that's all I'm sharing tonight. I guess I overlooked one of Rocky's growth spurts because I'm over here thinking he's like max 60 pounds. I mean, Coda, who's his dad, he ranges between 50 and 52, never over 52. A very small dog. Rocky's mom was not that big either. I don't know where his gigantism came from, but the other day I go and I weigh him at the pet store, and it says 70 pounds. And I'm sitting here thinking, oh my God, like, I have been feeding him not enough. I've been feeding him based on him being 60 pounds. I mean, granted, that's not that big of a difference, but I mean, it makes
a difference to him.
Yeah, to him, it makes a difference. So, and I noticed immediately a change in behavior after he ate. Because, I mean, he has always been like a treat fiend. Food fiend, he is there. If you have food, treats, anything that even looks edible, he is there. But, I thought I was attributing his behavior after his meals to that, just wanting Harley's food or wanting more treats, whatever.
Not
but
sincerely
it was
hungry.
Yeah, no, it was an actual difference.
Yeah.
He would not he wouldn't act as frantic or like, and okay, I wasn't starving him like that. That's not where I was going.
But there are ways to supplement this too.
Yeah.
So you can up a healthy fat. So get a little extra grass-fed butter is actually totally fine. Another topic for another day.
One of their favorites.
Yeah, and coconut oil. So you can increase the fat as well. So if you do have dogs that do seem hungry and you know that you're not undercutting them, they just aren't getting satisfied, a fat is a really good way to do that. And the right type of fat. That doesn't mean pizza.
It's not like for humans.
No. That doesn't mean keto, add some avocado, bacon, ranch to it.
Yeah.
But it does mean add some coconut oil, goat's milk, anything like that. That is a healthy fat for them.
And I personally will rave about coconut oil until the day I die. Like, for dogs specifically. Coconut oil, to me, makes a huge difference.
It's brain fuel for them. It really
Not only that, but, I mean, their coat.
Yeah.
And their skin, just like, I don't want to say it's a cure-all, because I know there's no such thing as those. But, I mean, it
does well.
Could be pretty damn close.
It does well. And for your dogs that are... Something else you'd want to know is kind of the origin of your dog. So what would they naturally be eating if they were from their place of origin? So I'll use the example of labs. 1, because it's a common dog. 2, because we have failed them a lot. They naturally would have been eating a diet very high in salmon, which is incredibly rich in omega-3 and 6 fatty acids.
I did not know that.
And we notice a lot of labs with allergies. They have an issue with a lot of proteins, and a lot of them seem to all end up on a fish-based protein. These dogs naturally would need more fat in their diet, and then you'll see their coat restored. So knowing also where your dog, its actual origin, not I got my dog in Georgia, like where where did it actually begin, and then understanding what would have been readily available. So having, an Italian Greyhound, in theory, Greyhounds are rabbit hunters. So in theory, that's a good protein to start my dog on. And just little caveats that are good to know in the advanced long-term raw feeding world.
Right. So I know a lot of our followers are Australian Shepherds. So what would you suggest for an Australian Shepherd?
So what are they around a lot? Their job is to herd sheep.
True, I guess.
And they're going to be, a lot of them, I know they're Australian Shepherds, and yeah, that's fine. But, they're going to have a lot of really rich, healthy cattle. And a lot of they're farming dogs. They're not coastal dogs.
That is true.
So they're going to do better on farmed animals. What do we find at the farms? We find chicken, we find cattle, we find sheep, we find goat. So they're going to do better with proteins like that, traditionally speaking. And again, every dog is unique, so this is just a starting point, and then you kind of have to reverse engineer it. So start here and then figure it out.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, I mean, it really is just all about figuring out what's specifically good for your dog.
Right. And then quality of proteins is going to change too, but, a lamb, that's going to be something that's probably really good for them. And then because of their long, rich coat, any dog with a coat like that is going to need fatty acids. It's non-negotiable. They're going to need it more to keep that shine, keep that luster, to keep their skin moisturized. That's what they're going to need internally.
All right.
For all you Aussies.
Yes. You got a big Aussie fan base.
I wonder why.
So what if you're not ready to go full raw, but you do want your dog to be healthier, And what are some ways you can supplement their diet to improve their health, improve their skin, their coat, their well-being, but not commit to the raw feeding?
Add-ins. So this is not necessarily an all or nothing world. I will always tell you to do your best within your means. We currently are in the middle of what is this, our second 15th wave of COVID crisis? I don't know.
Yeah.
What are we in?
Perpetual COVID.
We've had it in LA for way too long.
Yeah.
And that does come with financial restrictions for a lot of people. So
It really
this
does.
isn't to judge anyone, because I think at the end of the day, if you are doing everything in your power to keep your dog in your home, that's great.
Mm-hmm.
So what is the really cheapest but best way to boost their bowl? An egg. A raw egg or a lightly cooked egg is the best thing. Veggies are pretty cheap, and you can do a whole bunch at once and then portion them out and just pop them out of the freezer. Cooked proteins, if you are still doing kibble, I would not recommend a raw
Right.
protein, but cooked is totally fine. And again, you can do like a half home cooked, half kibble situation, and you'll find your dog does well with that. But it's really whatever is within your means. And at the bare minimum, I do think most of us can afford eggs.
Yeah.
Eggs you can get fairly cheap. I know at Trader Joe's you can get a dozen for like $1.79.
Oh man, at Costco you can get, I don't even know how many.
Yeah, so
For
it's,
so
and you
cheap.
can freeze them. So eggs, if you do get a really good deal on a bulk situation, but you're not moving through them fast enough, which I will say eggs pretty much last forever. They have a pretty good mechanism in an egg that keeps them good. But an egg is actually the only complete protein for dogs.
Wow.
So it is the most bioavailable and most digestible complete protein for dogs.
I did not know that.
So that's a really good thing. If you can add an
That is
egg
awesome.
and a little bit of a veggie, that's great. I would also work on making your kibble more bioavailable, and what I mean by that is breaking it down, so soaking it and then kind of mashing it.
Right.
That actually helps pre-digest it, so their stomach acid and their digestive tract is already a step ahead.
Right. So they can move through it faster.
Yes. So that's
That
going
is
to
a
make
good
it,
idea.
and it's going to pull off some of the burden from the kidneys, because your dogs, when we're talking bioavailability and raw food, there's a lot of moisture content in. Oh, is that your baby? There's a lot of moisture content. That's Billy's favorite.
I know. I told you. I'm sorry. I can't throw this for you, bud.
So there's a lot of moisture content, obviously, in raw meat. In kibble, there is next to no moisture. That
Yeah.
moisture has to be pulled from somewhere. It's going to come from the brain. It's going to come from the kidneys. That's why we will see a lot of renal issues, and you'll definitely see it in cats for sure. But dogs are coming up with renal issues and liver issues far more often than they should, and it has to do with that. They are borrowing moisture from someplace, and it's a moisture that can never be replaced.
Dang.
So breaking it down,
Sounds
letting
bad.
letting that kibble absorb helps add a pre-digested step and prolong their health.
Yeah. So we're absolutely not saying like if you feed your dog kibble, it's bad for them or
No, and there's plenty of
But there
pretty good
are
kibbles.
definitely ways to make it better.
I call it a booster bowl.
Yeah.
So part of why we started our air dried treats too is to make some of this accessible to what I'll say are the regular dog parents.
Yeah. Not a crazy dog mom.
I do. I take full accountability. I know I'm a crazy dog mom, so I'm okay with it. But for the regular dog parents and dog people, we try to create a product that makes this accessible to you,
Right.
and you can use those products to boost the bowl as well. Liver is hands down your dog's natural multivitamin. It is so rich with almost everything that the dog needs. Now, don't overdo it, because too much of a good thing is actually a bad thing. But with a lot of our clients, that's what we talk about all the time. It's not just a treat just to give your dog a little snack.
Right.
It is meant as a whole food additive to boost your bowl, and that's what I talk about all the time, is just boosting the bowl.
Right. And I mean, what's better than a treat that they can enjoy that also helps them?
Right. And
That's
they aren't
perfect.
complaining. It's literally, if I had to rebrand myself and rename our company, it would have been called Meat Candy. Like, this is meat candy for the dogs. That's all it is.
I don't know if you'd be allowed to use that name. It might exist somewhere else already.
Please don't Google meatready.com.
No, do not do that. Do not do that. If you're under, specifically if you're under 18, do not do that.
Well, we
You
do
did not hear it from us.
We do have pizzles, so I guess
no.
it's it is in line with my company still.
Oh man. So one thing we do have to touch on is, I just learned about this today, but there is actually an anti-cancer veggie blend. If they had an anti-cancer veggie blend for humans, I mean, we probably still wouldn't eat it, but if they had an anti-cancer pizza, then
Probably
we would.
not. Yeah, if we threw it on a pizza, maybe. If we threw it in on a people note,
Yeah.
there is a quick way to do this. Roast some of these veggies, blend them, sneaks into pasta sauce, sneaks into chili.
Ooh, that does sound good.
This is how I get my husband to eat vegetables.
Pasta sauce.
I don't
That
have
is
a
such a good
child.
idea.
I don't have a child, but I have a man child, and that is that's what we have to do. We do a quick roast and a blend, and then doesn't even know he's eating veggie chili.
Boom. Right there. But thank God the dogs can't resist any type of food. So, explain the anti-cancer veggie blend.
So it's really just a base of cruciferous vegetables that have shown to help reduce rates of cancer by up to 25%. That's actually an incredibly high percentage.
Yeah.
It's a lot. So if you could add a couple tablespoons of that to your dog's food, I don't see why you wouldn't. Personally, I think if you can ferment it, which anyone can ferment, it sounds
Hard.
hard. It's not.
It even sounds hard to me.
It's not. It's
Thank God I have you today.
yeah. It's one of our actual add-ins, and if you're local, we do produce it for you. But it's not difficult. It just requires kosher salt and water, and a little bit of patience.
Yeah.
So it's not too
But
bad.
the last ingredient is the one that I don't work well with.
Little bit of patience. But we're using broccoli, we're using purple cabbage, we're using green cabbage, we're using beets, fennel, and cauliflower. So it's,
Yummy.
you can, honestly, you can throw it in your blender and then just freeze little ice cubes. That's fine. You can,
That's probably what I'm going to do.
yeah, and it's fine. And you can
Queen
do
of freezing
yeah.
shit.
So you can do a rough chop, you can blend it completely, it doesn't matter, and you can boost it a little bit if you're blending it. Add a healthy splash of apple cider vinegar, and that's a fabulous way to introduce these veggies. Most dogs don't have a problem with it. I mean, if they have a problem, my one dog, the only problem he has is I had the audacity to serve him something cold. That's his main issue. If it comes right out of the freezer, it's a no for him. But you can make like a smoothie, and what I'll do, because again, my dog is a little more high maintenance, it'll go in a mason jar in the fridge. So I'll just do a tablespoon, and I don't do it necessarily as a base. I don't structure my raw meals like that, but I do it as this is a healthy addition and serves a function versus I include 25% vegetable in their food.
Right.
And that's easy.
I feel like anyone can do that.
You can honestly crack an egg in it. You can crack an egg in it, blend it. There's a whole bunch of variations there. These vegetables are going to be low sugar and high antioxidant.
And that's what we need.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's not a sweet potato. It's not a carrot. There's not a lot of starch.
Yeah. So, shall we get into the questions?
Questions?
So, as you guys, or maybe you guys didn't see, I know both of us posted on our stories, and I know Sam and Dex posted on their story, a little questionnaire, or like a little question box that you could ask your questions about raw feeding. So some of the questions that we got, I think we kind of already touched upon them.
We did kind of build it in.
But we'll do it one question at a time. One of the questions was, how do you transition from kibble to raw?
So again, my favorite way to do this and what I recommend the most is a fasting period of 24 hours. And
Okay, wait, we're gonna have to redo that. Rocky, stop. You're done with that.
I love
Just lay
that
down.
one.
Just lay down.
And do we even need to edit this? Is this just like real dog mom life?
Oh, honestly, I was just gonna throw this whole thing on IGTV.
So, transitioning from kibble to raw. So I talked about it earlier on, and it's who needs toddlers? That's, I don't know.
Oh my god.
So give your dog their kibble dinner,
And then their next, no breakfast.
their next dinner should be raw. So a cold turkey switch, but a fasted period.
If you're worried about fasting, we talked about a lightly cooked egg, bone broth, or goat's milk. So a modified fast. That's the best way to do it.
Right.
Don't do half and half, none of that. That's really the best way and the safest way. I know we're conditioned to not think that, but it is the safest way to transition them from kibble to raw.
Okay. So our second question is, how do you know you're not underfeeding a certain nutrient or vitamin? Do you supplement?
So supplements should serve a purpose. So
Right.
I don't agree. There's a lot of bulls you'll see from the raw feeding community, and it's just powder after powder after powder, where I feel like half their meal is powder and not meat.
I've seen that. I've
Yeah.
seen that.
So again, too much of a good thing can be bad. Now, I guess let's address the underfeeding certain nutrients. If you're feeding a pre-made base or a pre-made raw, even,
They're required to be nutritionally balanced, and they have to go through labels. So
don't worry about it. If you're doing a DIY raw, you're going to want to follow a recipe or a ratio. So not even necessarily a recipe, but a certain ratio of protein, organ, and bone, and you're fine. If you're still not sure, you can do supplement testing. One of my favorite natural doctors does a hair sample test, and that's how he's testing for nutrients. So you just send the hair sample in, it comes back, it'll show if there are any deficiencies, it'll show if there's excesses. Usually not a problem, because dogs actually are pretty good about regulating.
Yeah.
So if you're doing a DIY raw and you have like liver, kidney, protein, whatever, and it's separated, a lot of dogs, and it does take a little bit of time, so don't think that your kibble-fed dog is instantly going to know how to regulate.
Yeah.
Their first instinct is just swallow everything as fast as possible. And then after some time, they are going to get better at regulating, and they'll know what's in excess. Ferrari even regulates to the point that he tells me when he needs a fasting day. He'll skip breakfast every now and again, and I don't fuss over it.
Yeah, that's kind of like Coda.
That's what I notice more than anything, is he'll
Yeah.
skip a meal, and that's him self-regulating.
Yeah. So my question, I mean, maybe it is just because I feed raw, and I mean, I don't mean to offend anyone by this question, but how do we know that dogs that are eating kibble are not underfed and on a certain nutrient or vitamin?
They are.
That's what I'm saying.
So there's a difference. If there's anything that I guess you can take away from this, is understanding bioavailability. So
Yeah.
just because you have supplemented with a synthetic vitamin does not mean your dog can absorb it and is utilizing it and is meeting their requirement. So, I mean, you can eat Fruit Loops and they're fortified.
Right.
Doesn't mean it's balanced, doesn't mean it's healthy, doesn't mean that you are a healthy person.
Right.
So, but you'll never hear of a dog who's on a kibble-based diet and your vet wanting to supplement test them and make sure they're getting their nutrients. You will
That
not
is
hear of
true.
that.
And we're not saying this to like put anyone who's feeding kibble down. It's more so to just raise awareness of like,
What goes on at the vet?
not only that, but like just because the mainstream is feeding kibble, it doesn't mean that it's always like the end all be all. There are other options,
No.
and I feel like there's always some like nutrient or supplement that you can add to your dog's diet
Yes.
to make them healthier.
Liver, eggs, on top of kibble,
Yeah.
and you've done a lot for your dog.
Bone broth. Bone broth.
Bone broth is good
freaking
as well.
awesome.
What we can talk about in another video and expand upon is AFCO labeling and requirements. Once you understand that, you might understand why we've taken the stance that we have on supplement and nutrient awareness.
Right.
It's it's tough to decide what a base is for a nutrient,
Yeah.
and putting a broad spectrum across it does translate differently. One of the things that happened was vitamin D became there's a toxicity, but what they didn't take into account was this was synthetic. So naturally occurring vitamin D doesn't pose a toxicity risk. So there are things to understand about synthetic versus naturally occurring.
Right.
And that is why, you know, I've developed my stance on it, and also as a part of my training to get my certifications, understanding how we get AFCO approved and what that really means, and understanding each of those nutrients. So there will be some things that seem like, oh, in theory it's deficient, but it's more bioavailable, meaning your dog can draw more, use more. So it's not.
Right.
So there is a difference between synthetic and naturally occurring. And that's true for humans as well.
Yeah. Definitely. So our next question is brands versus doing it yourself. What do you suggest?
So we talked about this earlier, and it might come down more to, do you have more money or do you have more time?
Yeah. Or how do you want to spend your money? How do you want to spend your time?
Yes. You can do a DIY raw incredibly cheap.
Oh, yeah.
Even one of my very dear friends, she gets deer. She lives in an area where they get deer. She can get whole parts of cattle from, you know, people who still do that. In LA, we don't.
We're not by that.
We don't have that.
Unfortunately, I would love if I could
In
get some
LA,
for
we
free.
can't find a farm. The closest thing we have is Chino, and that's no place that any of us want to go.
No.
So it's just dairy cows, and it's not.
Yeah, you can.
It's
You
not
can't
the
eat
same
those.
thing. No, and they're dairy cows. They're not even bred for that purpose. So
Yeah.
some people literally, you know, where you are, you can get all those organs for free. All these leftover parts that, you know, the people who are hunting, they're not using. You get it for free, and your dog gets a very healthy animal. Very, very healthy. There's nothing healthier than a naturally grazing deer.
And I think, I mean, at least the way that I do it, a little secret, honestly, feeding raw is cheaper for me.
It is for a lot of
the
people.
kibble that I would want to feed my dog.
And that's true. So if you're on this and you're feeding a premium kibble,
Yeah.
there's a few brands, I'm not going to name them, but there's a few brands that are premium, and you guys are paying a lot
A lot.
for them. You will see a lot of people, when you get off of that and go into raw, it's actually cheaper.
A lot cheaper.
So a lot. I know we have some overlapping brands, and it is incredibly cost effective for us. It's actually, for me personally, it is less expensive to get their food than it is for me to get like my human protein. Like per pound, their food ends up being cheaper. And one of the reasons why, because most of what they're eating are secondary parts which are not utilized as much in human consumption, at least where we are.
Yeah. And I don't want anyone to think that the reason their food is cheaper is because it's lower quality meat. Their meat is actually extremely high quality.
But because we are also getting it directly from the butcher.
Yeah. So
We
my
don't, we are
suggestion.
we are not paying for packaging. We are not paying for advertising. We are paying for a real honest to God butcher who has a love for dogs and knows that he can use these parts to create a healthy dog food.
Yeah. So that would be my first suggestion. If you are trying to start raw, start feeding raw, go, like, ask your local butchers if you have some around you. Butcher shops, and there normally are, like, everywhere,
You can
right?
probably even get liver at a bare minimum, liver and gizzards at any regular grocery store. Any regular grocery store, Stater Brothers, anything like that is
Probably
gonna.
Walmart.
Walmart actually. Walmart has a lot of.
I've heard
area.
good things about Walmart.
Yeah, you can even get cow tongue. You can get
Yeah.
liver, gizzards. So it's not as complex, but you will have a little bit less variety. But that's not a make or break for me personally.
Yeah.
Variety is nice and rotating is nice, but if you can at least get some basics, that's fine. But finding a butcher,
That would be an amazing first
you
step.
can ask them, because a lot of them toss a good amount of the organs.
And I mean, a lot of times they'll give you a really good deal because I mean, it's either throw it away and make no money, or give it to you for
$1 a
$1 a
pound.
pound,
Yeah.
a couple cents a pound.
Yeah, it's not too bad, but it is a little bit more time consuming to do it yourself. You do have to follow a ratio. It's not too difficult. If you have the scale, it's not the end of the world. But if you are more comfortable and if you have a little more flexibility in your finances, there are plenty of really good brands.
Yeah.
And most brands that I'm aware of course there's going to be a one-off here and there. Most brands that I'm aware of, you have to understand these raw food makers, they are not getting rich on you. They're doing this because they have a love for dogs and they want to bring health to our community and to our best friends.
Right.
And that's sincerely why they do it. They're not here for profits because their profit margins are next to nothing. And that's from my own insider, I guess, view, because I have a handful of friends who actually have raw food companies. So I really do have the background and insight into what goes into making it.
Right. So my question is, when are you going to start making raw food?
So this is something that we get all the time. Logically, the next step is probably producing an air-dried version first, because a lot of our clients are not local. Most of our client base actually is across the country. So if you're in LA or California, find us.
Oh, yeah. The best.
Because most of my clients are in Miami and Massachusetts. They're about as far away as they can be.
Yeah.
So air dry is probably the next step, and then finding, we have a little secret project in the works to help facilitate our.
It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, we're working on what we can do for our people across the country, and we'll see. We need to
work some kinks out.
We definitely do. So air dry is probably the next step. People are asking for it. People want it. I do it personally for the dogs when we take them out. If we're ever going on a trip, I'll personally air dry some.
That's another question.
Yeah, so I'll air dry some of our food, but I haven't done it on a larger scale yet. But it's definitely something we can do, and we are working on it. 2021 is going to have some exciting things.
Hell yes, it is. So I think what we decided is whether you go with a brand or you do it yourself, both is good. It just depends on money versus time.
Yeah.
What you got more of. Or
There's no wrong way to help your pet eat better.
Yeah. Now, one of the questions was 100% raw or mixture with kibble. And I think
we've addressed the transitioning,
yeah.
But there is one caveat I will say. If you really have to, I really would prefer that you cook your proteins if you can't get away from kibble. Mm-hmm. If it's a financial thing, we've talked about that plenty. However, the one potential way to do it, and I still think you might run into some problems, is to do like a raw breakfast and a kibble dinner. So if you have to do both, separating them is really your best way to do it. And that's about the only way for me.
Right.
Or that I see it working, because at least then it has a chance to break down the kibble at a slower rate, break down the raw meat at a faster rate, and it's separated.
So, again, I don't have my numbers quite down. I'm not sure. Someone can fact check me since there are so many fact checkers on Instagram now. I swear I read something where it takes 8 hours for a dog's body to digest kibble versus 3 to 4 hours digesting raw food.
Yeah, it's pretty fast.
So I feel like if you do like a raw morning breakfast and then a kibble at night, you have to make sure the times don't
It's going to be
overlap.
And that's where you're going to run into some problems.
Yeah.
They're going to have some digestive issues potentially.
Yeah.
And there's not really a way around it.
Yeah.
I mean, the potential there is to add maybe an apple cider vinegar to the raw meal so you can boost the stomach acid like artificially and give them a chance of digesting it. But it is true, they are going to have a different hunger ratio, and what people normally see are going to be the hunger puke, so that's where they're throwing up the bile.
Yes.
Their stomach is emptied and their stomach is just not used to, it's a lack of consistency.
Right. And this is definitely not for the grazers out there. Right?
No, this is not
Definitely
a grazing
not
meal.
a grazing meal.
No, because you are
Don't leave
inviting
kibble
bacteria.
out. Do not leave kibble out so that they can eat. Your dog can eat it if it just ate raw food.
No.
Because honestly, I've never known a dog to not scarf down raw food.
Yeah,
Have you?
No, and
No.
we've done a lot of tests where we put a bowl of kibble next to a bowl of raw, just curiosity to see what does the dog naturally incline towards. It's always raw.
Yeah. And it's always raw, gone in 5 seconds.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even know how. I don't know where it goes. Like,
Yeah, it goes down pretty quickly for them.
yeah.
Some savor it. My dog, Ferrari, savors it. He's very delicate.
That's like Coda, I
Yeah.
think.
He enjoys it.
The other two just, they're
Inhale it.
monsters. They
Inhale
just
it.
Inhale it.
And then he looks around like, who ate my dinner?
Yeah, no, literally. They'll look at each other like, did you eat my dinner?
Meanwhile, Ferrari's still savoring it.
Oh my god. So, I think we finished that one, right?
Mhm.
It's basically. So, how time consuming is it? I feel like that's a tricky question to
It
answer.
is. It can be about the same as kibble, or it can be a couple hours. What you will notice if you are a DIY raw feeder,
Yeah.
you get faster as you go.
So much faster.
Yeah, you
You
get
have
your
your
system down.
method down, you
Yeah.
got it.
And it's not a big deal. If you are a DIY raw feeder, you prep ahead of time. You do not pull a meal together at the last second.
Unless it's absolutely necessary, like what we
Yeah.
were talking about before.
We forgot something, but like on a day-to-day basis, they do a lot of prepping. You use meal prep containers, you use Ziploc baggies, and you're prepared. Or you find a way to do it.
Yeah.
You find a way that works within your lifestyle. I can't comment on what works for everyone. Some people do actual meal prep containers. Some people just have the organs, separated and ready, whatever works for you. I am a lazy raw feeder. It doesn't take me any time.
Yeah, no, I don't think it takes me much time either. I mean, I know measurements, I know what I
Yeah.
need to put in where, whose meal,
It
who
does
gets
not.
what.
It does not take me much time. I keep one large container. I pull it
So
out.
do we.
I weigh it for them, and a couple supplements, and I move on.
That's what we do.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll change it up every once in a while, and
Yes.
honestly, like, I make a mental note of Sundays being my, like, let's get shit together for the weekday. And sometimes that means looking in the fridge and being like, okay, I gotta get more on Thursday. Or sometimes that means I need to make more coconut oil treats. I need to blend some vegetables and, pour those into molds and all, like, sometimes it entails a lot more time. But at the end of the day, that is just, like, one day out of, like,
It's a couple
the week.
hours.
Yeah.
And if you're doing anything that's freezable, I always tell people to do like a month at a time.
Oh, I do. I have, like, a ton of containers full of, like, coconut oil.
Yeah.
And just tons.
Get it done in one go,
Mm-hmm.
and then it's not too bad.
And if you can measure things ahead of time, that is what saves so much time. Before, I used to, like, scoop measure coconut oil every meal, or
Yeah.
every day, because I only feed it to them
Yeah.
one meal a day. This time, I'm literally pouring it into silicone molds, freezing it. I know exactly how many teaspoons each dog gets per day, and it is perfect. Throw
Yeah.
it in there, easy
And you move on.
peasy. Yep.
What we do, we're pretty relaxed. Our lifestyle is 100% built around the dogs. our life is, we bend and we mold to their schedule.
As any parent should.
Yeah, they dictate our schedule here. So, we don't have too many issues, but if you are leaving the house and you have a million and one things going on in the morning, prepping your breakfast meals for them is the best thing to do.
Yeah.
So one way to do that, you can do it all at once, 5 days, probably about 5 days at a time. I probably wouldn't stretch it too much further than that, but 5 days and just dump it in the bowl, move on. Or what we'll do, since we don't have to do that as often, when we have our farmers markets, we know that morning is too busy and we don't want to stop, pull out the scale. We just really need to get going, get on the road. We will make their dinner Friday night, and while we're making their dinner, we pack Saturday morning's breakfast. So that's ready to go. We dump it, we hit the road.
Right?
And that's it. So this can be as easy as you need it to be. It doesn't have to be too complicated. You don't have to have a bunch of meal prep containers, but if you had a couple sets and you could just get your breakfast in order, or if you work a night shift, whatever way that works for you, that's a really great way to save time. But other than that, we just keep one big container and we just scoop, weigh, and move on.
That's kind of like what I do. I mean, I'm up I during the week and sometimes on the weekends, depending on my work schedule, I have to wake up at 5 a.m. Don't really have much time to do anything in the morning. Get home from work around like 4:35, sometimes earlier, but it's rare. And so what I'll do is similar. Every time I make their dinner, they eat it, wash everything, and then I just make their breakfast, throw it in the fridge, and then they get fed in the morning. Easy.
I think in the meal prep community, like for humans, we call this cook once, eat twice. You just do one prep,
Yeah.
and you stretch it, and that's really the best. Best for the busy people.
Yeah.
If you're kind of relaxed, go with the flow like we do.
Yeah. That works. I mean, that's kind of how I am on Saturdays and
Yeah, the
Sundays.
weekends.
Like on the weekends, I obviously don't have to like be as like aggressive about meal prepping and like making sure they have everything they need for their breakfast and all done. So I don't
This
have
is
to worry
good
about it.
too, though. On another note, if someone else is feeding them.
Yes, like my sister in the mornings feeds them.
Yeah.
So I don't feed them because I wake up at 5. I don't want them eating that early.
They're
So
still
they'll-
sleeping in.
Yeah. No, they're huge sleepers.
My dogs don't get up before 8.
Yeah. No, I swear, like I'll be getting ready for work and the dogs are still like in my bedroom sleeping. They just don't. They want nothing to do with mornings.
They normally get up at 8 to eat their breakfast, and then they get right back in bed for probably another hour. My dogs are pretty lazy. That's their routine.
Oh my god. To live that life.
They wake up when they hear the bowls drop.
Yeah. So, to final answer to this question, basically it's as time consuming as you make it. If you are a diligent person and you are someone who's like OCD, I mean like kind of like me half the time, where you are able to really prep ahead and have everything ready, have everything done, and it's just like
You're
clockwork.
like the mullet. Your business in the front, Monday through Friday,
Oh yeah.
and then weekends it's
Party in the
sleep
back.
in and party.
Hell yeah.
That's called work-life balance.
Yes. Yes. Yes, until you crash and then it's just a shit show. But
Once you start approaching 30, it's a little different.
so our last and final question, I'm pretty sure, is how do you do it and is it safe?
Is it safe? 100%.
I'd
It
say I think that people think the meat that the dogs eat is drastically different than any meat that we would prepare for ourselves, when in reality it really is not. It's the other part of the meat that we would prepare for ourselves, right? From the same animal. It's just the stuff that we don't personally eat. So it's not like it has any different bacterias or pathogens or
No, and if you are doing a
Yeah.
pre-made from a company, they actually legally are required, they have a 0 threshold for bacteria and pathogen. Human grade meat actually is allowed to have up to 7%. So if you're doing pre-made, it's, a lot of them
it's actually
actually,
less risk
it is.
than humans cooking chicken and stuff for themselves.
It is. We talked about this. There's ways to mitigate any potential risks. So,
Right.
spraying the counter down, using separate utensils, separate brush, separate sponge, washing your hands. When it comes down to your dog is fine. Your dog naturally
Yeah.
has bacteria occurring in their mouth, always. So it does not have a increased risk. In fact, it should reduce the amount of pathogens and bacteria, technically speaking, because on a kibble-based diet or anything that has a starch, that creates more bacteria, and that's where you get the tartar and the plaque on their teeth.
Yeah.
Raw-fed dogs, you don't see that. So it's not sticking to the teeth, so there is actually, their mouth is cleaner, I guess is what I'm getting at.
Yeah. And
So,
oral health is like
Whole
one of
body
the
health.
most important things when it comes to reducing any cancer risks, any
Heart
sickness
disease.
risks, heart disease, everything. And
Yeah.
that's for humans too.
yes.
For humans too. It's crazy. I don't know why people don't talk about this more.
It's
Unless they do and I'm just out of touch. But
no, there's a lot of links between diseases, pathogens. I mean, so that plaque that accumulates in the mouth, that plaque creates the tartar. That can also accumulate in their arteries.
Right.
and that's where the heart disease comes in.
Yeah.
So there's a lot that happens
Yeah.
there.
And so one thing I did notice, I mean, Coda, I'm not gonna lie, for the first 4 years of his life, he was eating kibble.
Yeah.
And I'm talking, I mean, it was just Costco brand kibble, not a big deal. I mean, I was in college, like, I didn't really do much research. I didn't really understand, like, what it meant to own a dog in today's age.
In 2020.
I didn't know I had a child. Let's just put it that way.
In 2020,
Yeah.
dog rearing is different.
Yeah, no, much different. So, I mean, yeah, he had plaque and stuff, and I remember right before I started feeding him raw, I got his teeth like professionally cleaned when they put them under, is it anesthesia cleaning? Yeah. So I got that one done, and I mean it kind of worked. Not for what I paid at the time. I felt like it didn't do as much as I wanted it to. When I started feeding him raw, and I mean he would be chewing on like the bones and stuff, I saw a major decrease in the plaque in his teeth, and his teeth were whiter. His breath smelled less. Like, so many positive. I saw so many positives when it came to me switching, and even like just now with Rocky and Harley, I just recently transitioned them back to raw, and even in the short time that they were eating kibble, I saw a buildup.
It'll
of
happen
plaque.
quickly, and it doesn't matter
And a
if
change
you,
in like the smell of their breath.
It doesn't matter if you are a grain-free kibble feeder or a traditional kibble feeder. That doesn't matter, because to create a kibble, there is a starch, no matter what. So there is a pea, there is a potato, there is a starch. The starch, and this can get incredibly scientific, but what I'll just say is, it's sticky.
Yeah.
It's sticky.
And it's necessary
And again,
for what they
it
want.
It is, and it's again, they don't have the enzyme in their mouth to pre-digest that. So I think that's why we also see it more predominantly with their dogs. And I do want to touch on this because I thought of it. So there's a lot of people who, when we're talking about kibble, wet canned food, raw food, you've been told and you've been lied to when you're told kibble helps clean their teeth. Have you heard that?
I've never heard that.
Okay,
no,
so vets actually tell you this.
I don't really
crunchy
entertain
kibble-
what my vet says. Like, I
So
go,
I guarantee you, someone watching has heard this. I guarantee you that the kibble,
honestly, comment if you've heard this. Comment.
and this is something that they're told. It helps clean their teeth, the crunchiness, but wet food is bad for their teeth. This is something that is said. I swear, I worked in the dog industry my whole life. This is what we're
I
told.
believe it. I believe it.
Now, I just want to put that into perspective. That's about the equivalent to saying that chewing on a granola bar or crunching on some chips cleans and brushes our teeth. That's
Wish.
about that's about as accurate as I can explain that to people. When you're told that, that's about saying get your Nature's Valley and crunch on that and your teeth are good to go. I honestly, I feel, I don't know if I'm weird, but I can definitely feel a difference in my mouth when I'm eating stuff like that has that sticky sugar.
Oh yeah, no, definitely.
Like, you want to go brush your teeth.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Like, there's like a coating.
Yes, it's a coating.
Yeah.
It's a film, and
Yeah.
that's what happens in the dog's mouth as well. So, the best way to clean your dog's teeth would be bone, raw, meaty bone, air dried. That chewing mechanism scrapes the teeth.
Not cooked bone.
Not cooked. Never
Not
cooked.
bone.
Never
Do
cooked
not
bone.
feed your
No
dog-
leftover rib bones.
No.
None of that.
chicken. Never.
Yeah.
Never.
So the air drying process is different, and again, we'll have to do some more videos and go into this later. Air drying is different than cooking, but cooking does create raw splinters. So, or not raw splinters, but
no,
cooked,
the bone.
cooked,
Yeah. The
and
bone
splinters. Raw.
It can like puncture
It can.
their like
It can.
intestines and
Yeah,
throat.
it can. Absolutely, it can. So that's when you're worried about bone, you're worried about cooked bone. Raw bone is soft and pliable and safe. So,
and it doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't. I mean, splinter is like the perfect word. It doesn't like break like that.
no, because it's soft. When
Yeah.
you've cooked it, you have changed the chemical component of it. You've hardened it. So that's what you want to do. Raw, meaty bones, recreational bones. There's a difference between fully consumable and not. So recreational are going to be more like those, like the knuckle bones that people get.
Also,
those aren't fully consumable, but like we air dry wings, necks, feet. Those are fully consumable.
right. And dogs freaking love them.
Yeah.
My dogs go crazy for them.
Yeah.
But one thing that I've noticed, I mean, if your dog does have a tartar problem or teeth, I like to get the water buffalo horns.
Yeah.
And those last forever.
Antlers.
And antlers, yes. And it literally cleans their teeth so well.
It's mechanical scraping.
Yeah, I was so surprised. I thought that was just a sales tactic.
No.
From the pet store, because I got it at a pet store. But no, honestly, swear by it. I swear by it.
And there are a few other things. So if you do have, which maybe we'll do a whole conversation on dental health because that is important. But
it really is important.
There are some other supplements that you can use. We have a really great one that we started using because our Italian Greyhounds are prone to dental issues, and unfortunately we do have a genetic one. So we manage, but there are supplements that help, especially for the dogs that we know that if you have flat-faced dogs, they're going to be more prone to it. Small dogs seem to be more prone to it in general. So there's a few supplements that you can use in addition to this manual abrasive scraping and scrubbing.
Yeah. And we'll probably save that for our dental video.
Yep, because we definitely have to do that.
This is already way too long.
I know. We got carried away.
Yes.
Did we answer the supplements?
Yeah, we did.
Okay,
Right?
I think so. We can
The
do
hair
another one.
testing, yeah.
We can do another one on supplements
No,
as well.
honestly, yeah, we will. So those were all the questions that we got. Anything to close?
To close, you guys have to start where you're at. So if it's too much to take on a raw diet, whether financially or just time, whatever the reason may be, start where you're at and do the best that you can. Reach out to someone who is maybe what you consider a step ahead of you. See what they did, see where they started. Take in the advice and modify it for what works for your lifestyle, and just do the best that you can for your pets. It may not be a fully raw diet for everyone.
Yeah. And honestly, we're always open and available through our DMs, whatever.
Yeah, half of my DMs are consults on on nutrition
for
not
advice.
dog
And
treats.
not saying I am at least not a complete expert. Another piece of advice: go find yourself a mentor. She's my mentor. She's an actual certified dog nutritionist, right?
Yep, pet nutrition specialist. So it's
yeah.
past dogs even, and then I also have some expertise in Chinese medicine for animals.
Right.
So I follow a couple modalities, and I think that's probably my strong suit, is also knowing not everything is as cut and dry as it seems.
Yeah. So those are the only. Right? Get a mentor, and then find
Start
someone
somewhere.
you look up to.
Something is better than nothing. So if we haven't stressed that enough, eggs. Some eggs and some liver. Start there. Do the best you can. If you want to add in some supplements, that's something you can do for some of your kibble-based dogs. And do what feels comfortable for you too. And do your own research. You should never take what someone says and just run with it. You should do your own research, and you should make your own educated decision and do, again, what is right for you and your family and what feels comfortable for you.
So I guess that's the starting point. So don't.
Maybe we'll tag some of our favorites, some of our vets, because this isn't just a grassroots hippie movement. We do have actual vets who are doing massive amounts of research, and that's where I get a lot of my information and my expertise is. I don't follow some, crazy person just on Instagram. I actually do follow and listen to what the vets are saying, look at the studies that they're looking at, and I do my best to contribute to some of the funds and the research that they're trying to do. Because right now, the biggest argument against raw is there's no proof. Well, it's just there's no formal study that's been done on it, but the proof is in your dog. The proof is in your dog.
You will absolutely see it.
So that's just the thing when you're dealing with scientists, and at the end of the day, that's what your vet is. Mm-hmm. They're a science-based person, and if they don't have that right in front of them, it's tough for them to see. But
not only that, but I can understand the vet's standpoint kind of, because not everyone is as diligent and
Yeah,
done their
they're worried
research as
about
much as us, and
yeah.
so if they go and say, yeah, feed your dog raw,
Yeah.
I mean, they don't know what that looks like
Right.
at that person's house.
And they're worried about imbalances
Yeah.
and potential for pathogens. And like I said, what they'll see a lot is people have slowly transitioned, added raw in while they're still feeding kibble, and then the dog comes in and gets sick. So, of course, we can understand where that creates a skewed viewpoint, where in their head, in the logics, it equals raw equals sick. Not there was a poorly executed plan.
Right.
So, you can see, and your vets, I would say, 95% of them have absolutely the best intentions with your pets.
Yeah.
And it is an incredibly hard industry. And it's still difficult for those of us that are on the outside who want to go a more holistic route, but it's a tough industry for them, and we love our vets. We have great vets around here that we recommend, and I'm sure there's many across the United States as well.
Yeah. But yes, so bottom line, do your own research. If you need help, if you don't know about something, if you want to know more, if you're just not sure about what you've read on the internet or wherever you're getting your information.
And for everything that tells you it's good, there is always something that tells you it's bad.
That is true. I have hours of research. I have found conflicting articles, conflicting facts, conflicting statistics. I mean, it's really just go with your gut. You personally know what's best for your dog.
I don't think I can
what's
say
best for
anything
your life.
more clear than the proof is in your dog.
Yeah.
So that's where it is. Sometimes we, as humans, we overcomplicate it, but you'll see the energy and the calmness. It's somehow both. They're more calm overall, yet they have more energy.
Right.
I think it's less stinky.
I think rather than saying calm, I think it's more like they're more content.
Yeah, they're balanced, I think is the word. They're very balanced. They have the energy if they are playing, but overall they aren't obsessive. That's what I've noticed. I was a dog trainer before this, so believe me. I've seen it all. But do your research, do your best, reach out to people. That's honestly, and I will say, in my experience in this community over the last a lot of years, 12, 14 years, there are always good people. This community is founded on actual health and helping dogs live as long as possible. So this is not a place for egos. This is not a place for bashing people. We are truly invested in your dog's health, and that's the bottom line. And that's why what I do, I mean, I don't charge for any of my services. I just help point people in the right direction, give a little bit of guidance here and there, and help troubleshoot if we are dealing with it. And truthfully, I see a lot of really sick dogs. For some reason, I'm kind of the last resort. So I get a lot of DMs when they've tried everything and nothing's working. Then I come in. So, not that I want it that way. Believe me, prevention is the best. But the point I'm trying to make, I think, is I've seen what it can do.
Yeah.
So I've seen the miracle that happens, and I have that viewpoint is all.
Yeah. And honestly, again, I want to stress that Rocky's annoyed with our
He's done.
lengthy podcast here. But I want to stress that this is not, like you said, it's not about egos. It's not about raw feeding is like people who feed raw are better. No, I fed my dog's kibble for so long because financially I couldn't do raw. And back then I was doing cheap kibble as well. But once I got to a place in my life where I wanted to get the expensive kibble, the one that I knew was better for my dogs than probably the Kirkland Costco brand, then I simply realized it was cheaper to go raw. And that's my experience with it.
It was for us too, especially with the smaller dogs.
And you don't have three big ass dogs.
Yeah. I have 2 small dogs at 13 pounds, and their kibble was for sure more expensive than what it would than what I paid to do raw food.
Yeah. So, like we said, we touched on how to supplement your dogs if you want to stick with the kibble route, which is totally cool. Supplements work and add-ons work for any type of base meal that you're feeding them.
Definitely.
And I feel like
That's it.
that's it.
We just think your pets deserve the best.
Yes. And so we would like to thank Sam and Dax again for inviting us to do this. I know this one's probably going to go on IGTV. We might
It's gonna have to go someplace
yeah.
else.
We might
We're gonna have to redo these questions for you.
Yeah, probably. Got a little carried away. But I mean, there's so much to talk about. It's a big topic.
It is, and
honestly, I feel like
it's dry, and a lot of the resources you have are written
yeah,
and not engaging.
yeah. And I mean, I hope you guys think we're engaging. But I feel like we might have even like touched upon too much in this. We're gonna have to do like
Yeah, we're gonna have to do a smaller break it down truly
videos.
intro, because this might have dived a little bit too deep for some people, but
Yeah.
you'll see.
Work with us though. This is our
Yeah,
first video, first vlog. Is that
That's
what
right.
you call it? A
I
vlog
think so.
podcast?
I think it's a vlog,
Vlog is it?
a video.
Video podcast? I don't know. I've been calling it video podcast. I have no
Is that
idea.
a thing?
I don't know.
I don't know either.
I couldn't
Maybe
tell you.
we'll turn it into a podcast. You'll see us on iTunes shortly.
iTunes or Spotify?
All of them.
All of them. That's the answer that I was looking for.
Why limit ourselves? The world
We
is
need to
our
get those
oyster.
mics.
Oh yes, we'll have to next week.
Yeah, maybe next week.
We're gonna get
We're
our
putting a
setup.
lot of stuff on to next week.
Next week we're
A lot
gonna
of new products dropping in FB treats.
a lot going on.
We're gonna have to redo the intro because I totally forgot to mention that you were one, a certified nutritionist, and two, a FB treat owner.
The owner.
Yeah, but
That's fine. We have to redo it.
yeah,
That's
Anyways,
it. We think your
yeah.
pets deserve the best, and reach out if you need to. Comment below.
definitely.
We're here to help.
Yes. And Rocky, you want to make a last appearance? Rocco?
He's out.
Nah, he's like, I'm good. Just feed me dinner and then I'm sleeping for the rest
We
of the
bored
night.
him to death.
Yeah.
Enough talking. Put it in the bowl.
Oh my god. All right. I don't really know how to end a video podcast, so
I think that's that.
that's that.
I think you pushed the button.